I'm sitting in Songhees First Nations territory that is so-called Canada, the Pacific Northwest, better known as Victoria or Vancouver Island. Looking over the ocean as we're talking, you and I, and I'm really stoked for this conversation.
Wow, this is
And what we're
beautiful.
going to drop in on today around, WeCare impact, around Green Planet, Blue Planet, the way regenerative impact matters, and the way we apply ourselves to this world. What about you?
I'm in New York City. I just arrived yesterday. I'm going to be here for a quick couple of days before going back to DC, but I'm excited to dive in deeper with you today. Maybe give a little bit of introduction, or if you want, we can get it started with like, who are you, Julian? What do you do for the people that don't know? You're the host of a podcast called Green Planet, Blue Planet, but you're also much more than that. So maybe a little bit of introduction.
Right on, sure. I'm gonna go for it. So I'm Julian Guderley. I live in Canada, as I just said. I've been podcasting for the last 5 years on the topic of regeneration, rejuvenation, rebirth, of really our economics, our ecological care for the planet, and the way we do this. I also, I have a background in event management, and I've done this for many different companies over the last 15 years, and realized my passion lies in bringing people together and just gathering people in different, and power spots in the world. Often that leads me to Brazil, where you and I last met as well, Nesma. And, kind of to tie this ecosystem of change making together, I work as a consultant and coach with individuals and groups, and also at events, or as speaking at events and hosting workshops. So that's kind of like my ecosystem of how I operate, and how I've understood that there is actual real impact to make, and lots of opportunities to inspire people and to consistently empower and encourage people to express their gifts into the world, which is what makes my heart sing. Like, if I were to summarize what I'm here to do, what my purpose is, what my dharma is at this time in my life, it's really to bring out more of the gift in the people around me, and in the people that make regenerative efforts in the world.
Let's step back here and maybe tell us, like, how did it start for you? What got you started to be on that path? What was the moment where that inner realization and the motivation to be a part of it started for you?
It's a really good question. I think, I believe everyone tuning into this conversation, including the two of us, Nesma, are like on a journey. And on that journey, there are many indicators or ways that have pulled me into what I do professionally now, and kind of the way I believe we can build the world our hearts are longing for. And it started for me most pragmatically about 10 years ago. I was working as an event manager for BMW cars at the time, actually. And I was literally touring the world. I worked in Austria, Germany, and Spain, and in Canada. And I was on a tour in Canada. And I was just so tired to give my energy to the car industry and to support something that at the baseline of it, I just didn't believe in. I just didn't believe that this is something we really needed more of in the world. And I understand why people like beautiful cars or beautiful machines, but it just didn't feel like my heart was in it at all. And so there was this day where someone drove up with an electric car. This is like 10 years ago. So it wasn't even a Tesla. It was like a biker or something like that. Fiker, I think, was the name of the brand. And he drove up to the venue and handed me the charger cable. And as I received the charger cable, if this was a movie, there would have been like a soundtrack, like angels playing music, singing in my ear. I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna have to quit my job. And so within a week, I realized I'm gonna quit my job, and so I did. And then from there, I just started peu à peu. I for several years ran a event venue in Victoria, in British Columbia. It was like an experimental event venue, from evening gigs, music, to shamanic drumming workshops, to yoga classes, meditation, lots of, we had a kitchen as well, a kitchen space, macrobiotic food classes. And I was just really connected to the idea of lifelong learning and creating connections within community for lifelong learning. And that sent me like really going strong on this journey, because I said no to corporate, I said no to a corporate career, and I started really experiencing what, you know, we call it impact, but what I would call just, you know, the reciprocity of when you follow what your heart's voice really tells you to do. And over short or long, it got me to host more events, got me to start coaching, and it got me to start guiding people and mentor people. And at some point, the next instruction I got from my inner voice was start a podcast, start interviewing more people on the topics of regeneration, on the topics of, you know, what I call green planet and blue planet, like the flora and fauna and the oceans of our planet.
Beautiful. And there's also two concepts that you mentioned that I think are really beautiful. One is that you say that you believe that we're all indigenous of Mother Earth. And maybe if you could expand a little bit about what do you mean by that?
Yeah, right on. I mean, you know, if you wanted me to be politically correct, I think I'd be the wrong person to choose. I think we got to really stand in our power with our words. And at this point of our story, as humans on the planet, I think there's a lot of identity issues. We see it in all kinds of communities and all kinds of cultures and all kinds of backgrounds. And we've lost a little bit, or a lot of it, the connection to the natural world. And when one goes to learn with Indigenous people all around the world, you know, I last did so in Brazil actually, there's this understanding in people that are from Indigenous tribes that we are actually all Indigenous. And you, even though, pointing at me, even though maybe I'm a blonde white guy from Germany originally, even though I might identify as that, the bottom line, I am of this earth. I am made by this earth. This earth is my mother. And when we understand and reconcile that origin, you know, long story short, as a true connection point, we would not exploit the planet, neither for capitalism nor for personal gain, nor for building more technology. And so that deep mindset shift to go from exploitation to caring like for a friend or for a mother is what it means to be Indigenous, because we know that this is our origin. You know, like we, in this journey as a human, we're currently experiencing planet Earth from a human perspective. And I don't believe more technology will save us or save climate change. I think that's all a bunch of BS, to be honest. I think reconciling that indigeneity is step one to understand me too, you too. We're all part of choosing Earth, and Earth is our mother, and then letting our actions and our commerce and our industry live up to that integrity. And I think that's the path of the next 10, 20 years, and it's a steep path, and I'm not saying we figured it all out or I know all the answers, but that's where we're at, you know?
Well, thank you for sharing. I think that indeed it's a really beautiful way to approach a reconnection with ourselves, with one another, and as well with this planet that we all belong from, no matter how, you know, foreign it can feel, whether it's our environment, you know, and the fact that there's a lot of mysteries surrounding us that we still don't have answers to, or, you know, the difference of cultures that only certain social and economic and geographical contexts contributed to. So that takes me to the opportunity that you've had through your podcast to interview such a wide range of thinkers, doers, filmmakers, you know, activists that are working towards building a regenerative future. They're aligning their actions and their philosophies into being positive agents of change themselves. And I think being in the position that you are, you know, you have indeed a responsibility, which comes with the platform of sharing, you know, this information to the rest of the world. But you come as well with a beautiful perspective, you know, that has been enabled through listening to so many other people that are also trying to remediate the same ills and problems that we may face right now.
Sure. And you just crashed there into my couch. Yes, absolutely.
I would love to hear what has been your biggest insights, you know, and if you what that experience, what those 300 episodes that you have on regenerative leadership, you know, has has brought or has added or elevated for you at this point?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with diversity is key. So no one person, belief group, way of being, solution. Like there is no one way to go forward. And our diversity as humans, just like in the natural world, the biological world, the diversity of, for example, plants is what makes this world so rich. The same with our ingenuity. So our diversity and diverse angles is really something we need to live, not just talk about. So that's like one of the keys. And I think mainstream media, mainstream society is quite the opposite. It's trying to marginalize and reduce everything to, this is the silver bullet, this is what needs to be done, we need to build this technology, or you need to follow these rules. And I think it's quite the opposite. It's about healthy, local, ideally decentral islands of sanity, like communities of people that can provide for each other, that can care for each other, rather than one large kind of globalist solution. And I think a lot of people are noticing this and waking up to this, or intuitively already feeling this, while we're also globally connected, while we're also learning to reconcile. There's another important topic that shows up over and over, even though I'm not necessarily a technology expert. While we're reconciling the way we've given away our right for data, for example, right? Like the internet isn't really a free place. We pay with our attention and our data. And it would be a very different place if everyone was to own their own data, rather than just by the virtue of using an app, giving it away to the owner of the app, like Facebook or Google or whatever, right? So there's a long path to go in reconciling right relationships so that we can actually build, and this is another through line in the podcast, an economy of care, which is based on the principles of economic, the way our natural desire to care and take care of each other and the mother, so to speak, the mother of the planet, can express itself. Because currently it's really hard for that notion and this way of being to really come out, because we have these economically limiting factors that most companies at the end of the day are just needing to report shareholder value. And that won't change unless we change that. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that has to do with certain things we simply have to stop doing. Like at some point we will have to stop producing plastic on this planet. We'll already produce so much. We can recycle this probably until the next hundreds of years. And maybe one day, if we really stop to produce new plastic, plastic becomes a rare and sought after commodity in its form. But currently, like it's just polluting everything. We have to stop producing it. Just like, for example, here in the Pacific Northwest, where I just showed my gorgeous view out the window. We need to stop factory fish factories, because they are polluting the local salmon with lice, and therefore the salmon are dying literally, and they don't provide food for the orcas and the eagles and even us humans. Right? We need to open dams. Like there are some of the clarities that are actually things we have to do. It's non-negotiable. And like, for example, ending production of plastic would be one of those examples.
And so what are some of the ways that we like to raise awareness, to sensibilize people and inspire them, as well as to give them in this inspiration some ways that they can become part of the solution? So while the plastic crisis is at its root a problem of manufacture, and of mass production of our systems and governments and public policies that really have to be enacted in order for the production to stop. But as an individual, member of the society, what would be your recommendation into helping get to that?
Mm-hmm. Wow, I mean that's a big ass question. So I said a few sentences ago, our diversity is key, and so that's part of it.
I think like one of the ways, is that we have way more power than we think in terms in being consumers, right? And so if we choose not to take the plastic bag, if we choose not to buy our vegetables or fruits, in ways that are just creating more plastic waste, if we are really conscious about where we put our purchasing money, brands, you know, and societies will have to follow. So I think this is like one easy way that we can become, you know, part
You
of.
know, in theory, I agree with you, but in reality, those are just like marginal things to do. Like yes, of course, we have a certain power as consumers, but really, you know, there are certain things that if that was really true, and if that is the driving factor of what's going on in this world, then we would already see a lot of change. We
But
actually need to hold companies and individuals and, you know, groups of people that are creating agreements, what are legislations or next steps of large entities of government or the non-governmental organization planning. We need to hold those people accountable with absolutely no tolerance for destruction or pollution of the waterways, of the earth, of the soil. And that is really people standing in their power rather than policing each other over who is more politically correct or who says what wrong, or, you know, like there's quite a farce going on the social media where we see humanity fighting with each other over small things, but in reality these really big things, they have to do with how we let economic factors and economic pressure demand what's being done on this planet on the cost of future generations and Mother Earth and all of our lifeblood. Because really, I mean, if the rivers are polluted, like, we are drinking this water, we are this water. And so what I believe, you know, we got to understand there is that looking away and saying that's just the way the world is just no more, because we're literally right before shit hits the fan. And so it's time to stop being naive that there aren't people with, you know, oligarchs, quite frankly, with high interests in a perpetuation of this state of the world. And many people are seeing this. It is absolutely visible. I don't exactly know what it's going to take and mean to hold everyone accountable, but it's an integral part of that next step. An integral part of that next step. As individuals, it means to simply say no to certain things. And it means to say yes to supporting and helping each other a lot more. And it says yes to spending dollars where it benefits other people rather than just the Amazons or the, you know, Facebooks of this world. And it also means to support other people who care and your local community as much as possible, because that's where, like, let's just imagine tomorrow gas prices raised again another 500%, and like no one can afford it anymore, and food prices as well, when in an inflation like not seen since 1929 or something, right? What would happen? Like, now we're at the hook of our governments to tell us what our next possibilities are. But really, if you have resilient local structures and you and your neighbors grow food and you like each other and support each other, it doesn't really matter. And we don't live in a world like that anymore. And that's what makes us fragile. And so the resilience comes from supporting each other, really saying no, and not accepting mandates from governments or companies.
Awesome, Julian. Thank you so much for your wonderful like insights about that. I definitely think there's a lot of food for thought, you know, and I would like to take the conversation into what are some of the ways that you've seen or that you've had a chance to be exposed to that are doing that, you know, or they're kind of taking up that fight in a positive and meaningful way. And what are some of the things that we can learn from that, either as individuals or as companies trying to build a regenerative business? And yeah, just really leveraging again, you know, both your experience and the exposure that you've gained being in touch, and also coaching so many regenerative business and entrepreneurs in that field.
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you so much, Nesma, for having me on, asking me, and listening to my my version of the world. You know, so
It's been a pleasure.
I believe there's many layers to that. There are companies like, for example, some of the people I interviewed were Dr. Bronner's, who was a great example for a really like a business run with high integrity, family-owned business, multiple generations of family, based on natural ingredients. You know, they're soap producers, and then using their capital power to sponsor and inspire other people to take more action, like putting their money into the arts, putting their money where their mouth is, they've even created something called the Certified Regenerative label that they're, with other brands, are like Patagonia included, rolling out over the world. So there's this like big enterprises that are already doing it this way. And there are many people striving to build enterprises like that are based on natural principles and that give back to communities and artists and activists. That's one layer, right? Not everyone is in that position. Another layer is there's tons of people that are filmmakers, artists, creatives. I mean, number one thing is just keep creating. Don't let anything stop you. Don't just turn to a cynic or critic of society, but create the joy and the love that comes through you, and point your camera towards what you want to preserve or cultivate, you know? And then you asked about coaching, and I think coaching is quite interesting because, you know, of course there is like the ongoing meme joke that, like, you know, I wish I had the confidence of a 25-year-old life coach, which is funny because, like, yeah, maybe there's also a lot of people that are just trying out something, but at the core of coaching, if it's really based on integrity, is the connection or the connector of caring and caring for each other and supporting each other to become more resilient. Sometimes saying, hey, no, you can't do this, or hey, no, I cannot do this with you, you should maybe do this somewhere else, or hey, I want to support you, like both on the boundary side as well as the embracing side. You know, and with coaching, there's a lot of depth there that we might not have the time to go into today, but that element of caring being expressed in our society is extremely important. We've seen mental health problems over the last 10 years like never before. We have no idea what all these social medias are really doing to our perception of self and our well-being. You know, we know some of the studies with teenagers and suicide rates are horrendous. And so we actually need more professions of caring in this world, no question.
I love that you said that, Julian, because our company is called WeCare Impact, and the reason why it's called like that is for two ways. One is that me flipped upside down is actually we. And it's only when we flipped, you know, that perception of like me, you know, whether it's me that is going to save the world or whether it's a world about me, and we flip it to we, that we'll really be able to get somewhere. Because really, like, I've always been driven, you know, like you, to be an agent of positive change and to contribute, you know, to the realization of an equal society and a thriving environment that I saw the seeds of potential for. But very quickly I realized that no matter how much I was driven and I cared, which was the seed of my intrinsic motivation, I would not be able to do it without the rest of us, you know. And that's the whole idea with WeCare, is that me flipped upside down is we, and that if we get other people to care, if we get the whole world to care, then we would all be intrinsically motivated to be agents of change, to you know, treat each other with kindness, to make sure that our world, you know, is taken care of as well, and that keeps on giving to us. So that very much is the seed of this, you know, viral transformation and awakening that we're on a mission, you know, to ignite and to start. So I'm very much, you know, enthused and comforted, you know, that we share that same seed of intention and understanding, that it's only through more care that we'll be able to really make a difference and to create the world that we hope for. And so on a last note, you also mentioned the role and the power of artists, you know, as well as entrepreneurs, but as well as the power of artists in order to bring about that change, you know. And I would like to take a moment here and ask you about, how do you think art can be a catalyst for positive change? And what is your opinion, the role of artists in that movement?
It's a beautiful question. I mean, there's a few ways how art contributes to that movement. You know, I'm going to do a philosophical sidestep here. It's very important to understand we're not living in a Cartesian universe and a linear reality. We are living in a world of energy. And people choosing to step out of the so-called matrix, or the 9-to-5 slavery, or the repetition of making life like a meaningless experience, and choosing to express who they truly are with a form of art, if that is music, if that is painting, if that is activism, if that is any other form of art, just by the act of doing so, they're choosing to become an answer to this world, an answer that the pathway of becoming more industrialized factors for industrial revolutions that are only benefiting the few and are in the back of our planet. Just by the act of denying that and doing something different, it's like resistance embodied with a creative spark. And then that's the second thing, right? It's just creative spark. Like, you don't need to be a famous artist to inspire people. It's the act of sharing your creative spark that is visible to us. I can see when you do that. And then it inspires me, or it empowers me, or it enables me to do so for myself as well. And so I think that's where art is really truly like infectious in the most positive way, that it is a ripple that moves through us, and it's like a language of love that connects us all.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Julian. It's been such wonderful like sharing this with you. I would love to close, you know, like this IGTV live by asking you, if you feel comfortable, to share with our community a tip around meditation or breath work, you know, that would enable them to kind of cultivate that connection and that practice within themselves. And if, you know, the people that have joined us that will be seeing this, I will be publishing this on the WeCare, you know, Instagram page as well for people to see. But Julian, you know, is a coach and runs groups as well as one-on-one for entrepreneurs that are trying to build a regenerative business, and also teaches yoga kriyas, which are a set of yoga poses, as well as breath work and meditation as part of that practice. So we just had a wonderful conversation on some pretty important and amazing topic. I look forward for as many people to be able to hear what you had to say. And I was closing the session by asking Julian to share a small little exercise, you know, like tip within breath work and meditation that the community could take with them and integrate within their toolbox. A little like care, you know, care gift.
Self-care, connect to real life force. Yeah, so definitely breath work. Kriya yoga has been part of my life for, you know, a decade and longer. And the single most important thing I could point to right now is just to consistently throughout the day, within an interaction, within scrolling through your phone, while listening to someone, to become aware of where in your body your breath is occurring. And if it isn't occurring, to connect to that breath, eyes closed or eyes open. You know, ideally, place your tongue on the roof of your mouth and then breathe in deeply through the nose so you can hear your own breath on the inside of your mind, so that your breath becomes the predominant experience. And when you do that and exhale again, and inhale again and exhale again, and do that 2 or 3 times, it increases, for one, oxygen delivered to the brain, so you're very likely sharper, but it also increases your presence and your ability to be in a present moment, rather than scrolling mindlessly through social media and not knowing why you're even there, or rather than listening to someone just to wait until it's over, but to arrive again. And so it's like a shortcut to breath consciousness, which is really where life happens, you know, through breathing into each moment.
So maybe let's take one deep breath together.
Let's do it.
Let's go. The count of 3, we'll exhale. And inhale. Well, thank you for this mindful and very inspiring moment, Julian. And look forward, you know, to seeing you keep inspiring and, you know, lighting up people's intentions and best expression of themselves. And thank you for being a part of the WeCare family. We love you very much.
Thank you so much, Nesma. Thank you so much for featuring this and having me on here, spending a few minutes of your day with me, and just all the best to you and the path of WeCare Impact. Thank you.
Bye, Julian. Talk to you soon. Oh, and everybody, please check out Julian's podcast, Green Planet, Blue Planet. It's available.
Link in my bio. Check it out, or on your favorite podcast
music. And I will link it in the comments, as well as put it, you know, in our Instagram post. Bye, everyone. Thank you.